What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Humble Hustle Podcast. This is Salazar. If you're new here, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. And if you're new, go check out some of the other videos where we talked about, what did we talk about? We talked about why I started the Humble Hustle Podcast. We talked about comparison. We talked about frustration. So go check that out. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button so you stay tuned. We're trying to grow this community, so I appreciate you just for being here. Today, I just want to share a quick thought with you guys about satisfaction and attractiveness, right? And I don't know why, but lately the Lord's been placing on my heart Psalms 37:4. It's a very popular verse. It says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." And while that's such a like a hallmark little cliche verse, oftentimes we take it kind of lighter than it actually is, right? It says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." That's way easier said than done, if you ask me. Right on this podcast, we keep it hot, we keep it humble, open, transparent, and I'll always talk about myself. And for me, what that verse means is like, yeah, we can have the desires of our heart, but oftentimes we forget that first part, delight yourself in the Lord. And what does that mean? So when Solomon, who's the wisest man ever, was writing this psalm, he was talking about delighting yourself in the Lord through thick and thin. Right? It's like kind of like how Philippians 4:13, right? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Oftentimes we take that verse way out of context as well. Paul was writing Philippians in the sense that, hey, we've been poor, we've been rich, we've been in jail, we've been free, we've been serving God at the highest point, but we've also been persecuting Christians. And through all of that, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens me because He has gotten me out of those situations. Not necessarily, you're going to hang off of the side of a building and say, God gives me strength, I can do whatever. No, don't put yourself in a situation like that. But however, Psalms 37, Solomon is writing kind of in a similar manner. Delight yourself in the Lord. That means be fully content with whatever God gives you before He's going to give you the desires of your heart, right? Because if our heart is not close to God, right? If we're not content with what He's given us or the path that He has set out for us, our hearts are already wicked as it is, right? How's He going to give us the desires of our heart when we don't even know what's best for ourselves, right? And so that's kind of the one thing I want to talk about. I was kind of thinking about it at the gym today, like, man, it would, and you know what it was? And this is fully transparent. This is just who I am. I was pulling in the parking lot. I bought a Chevy Cruze 2016. I love my little Cruzy, but it isn't the nicest of all cars, right? And as I was pulling in, somebody pulled in right in front of me, and it was somebody in a nice like Mercedes. And I was like, man, that would be nice. To me, right away, I was attracted to the car. I was like, yeah, that would be super nice. But at the same time, I don't know the situation that they're in, right? I don't know the situation that God has placed them in. And so for all I know, they could have the car, and for me, on the surface level, it looks amazing, right? That's the desire that I have in my flesh, to want that car. When in reality, what if that person is barely making those payments, right? I have my Chevy Cruze, and thankfully the Lord has blessed it, where we have a car guy that, hooked it up. But it's good, it's been a blessing, it works, right? And so my attractiveness to the satisfaction, in the moment, I didn't feel satisfied with my car, right? I didn't feel like it was what I deserved, or like I felt like I needed more. And a lot of the times, if we're being honest with ourselves, we do that with everything, right? With relationships. Yeah, I'm gonna come for y'all. We find and nitpick every little thing in our partner that we start being dissatisfied with the person that God has created them to be. And we start finding attractiveness in other things. And I'm not saying that's bad. Like, when you're in a relationship, even the married couples, right? Just because you get married, all of a sudden everybody else doesn't get unattractive, right? That's not true. It's just the decisions that we make based off of our attractiveness can either lead to honoring and glorifying God and being satisfied, or lead to sin. And so we find that in relationships all the time. We find it in business, right? And especially like in the business that I'm in, comparison is huge. And so like, if you're not fully satisfied with the position that God has placed you in, first of all, let's take a look at the business plan, right? We may need to be doing a little bit more, but maybe God hasn't called you to have the same business model as somebody else. But in our flesh, oftentimes we become dissatisfied in ourselves because something else seems more attractive or more appealing. And so talking about that, because this is the Humble Hustle Podcast, and we do talk about finances and like business and stuff like that. The one verse that I felt convicted of as soon as I saw that car, and I was walking in the gym thinking, you know, man, I wish I had that, was Hebrews 13:5. It says, keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I shall never leave you nor forsake you. And that is so true. You know, you think about all the times that I reflect on my life, the times that God has pulled through financially, right? And the same thing can be flipped, right? It doesn't have to be finances. Yes, Hebrews talks about finances in that particular verse, but maybe he's saying, maybe God's telling you, be satisfied in the relationship that you're in right now, because he's never going to leave you nor forsake you. It may not be the most attractive. It might not be your dream guy or your dream girl, right? He may not be 6'5", light skin, dark, slime, makes 6 figures. That's a fairy tale, right? And so, well, you may find it. And if you do, congratulations, hold on to that. But at the end of the day, we have to be satisfied, and we can't let dissatisfaction or attractiveness overcome our hearts and our desires, because that's when we start leading into problems, right? We start taking our attention away from God, and it takes it to something else, something that can only merely satisfy us for a moment. And we know that money can buy happiness. Don't get me wrong. You know, I heard somebody saying, it was like, when people say money can't buy happiness, yeah, somebody broke said that. But money can't buy joy. That's the thing, right? And joy comes from the Lord. So kind of pick and choose, right? I'd rather have joy, because that means no matter your current situation, you're always going to have joy through Christ, because 1, he gave his life for you. 2, he's given you what you need, right? Regardless of what situation you're in, he's always going to provide. Versus happiness, you can buy happiness, but happiness is only temporary, right? We go through emotions all the time. You're happy and you're sad, but joy is, no matter what the situation is, you still have joy in your heart. So the next thing I want to kind of talk about is, like, you think about your current situation, right? Whatever situation that you're in, if you find yourself becoming dissatisfied or attracted to something else that you feel like God, and the one thing is that we try to convince ourselves, right? If God hasn't called you to do that, then you're probably not supposed to be there, right? And so if you become discontent with whatever situation that you're in, 1 Timothy 6:6 is an awesome verse to kind of just reflect on. And I encourage you guys, think about it throughout this week. It says, now there is great gain in godliness with contentment. And so what does that mean? That means as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, right? If we're following after Christ, if we're reaching out for him, that's when God's going to give us that contentment, right? He's going to give us the desires of our heart. So for example, a lot of the times people are saying, oh, you can't go looking for love, love will come to you, right? And I truly believe that that is true, right? But it's not until, but you can't just sit around and do nothing. That's the other thing, right? It's, what are you doing while you're waiting? That's what patience really is, right? When we say, oh, wait on the Lord, wait on the Lord, wait on the Lord, he's going to bring the one. It's more so saying, wait on the Lord for his timing, but during that time, pursue God as much as you can and as hard as you can. Because the harder you're pursuing Christ and focused on him, that's when he's going to drop somebody into your life. And that's when it becomes, okay, you're fully content in the Lord, whether or not he brings you somebody, right? And it's a very hard pill to swallow. Trust me, I'm still in the same boat, right? I think in some of the past relationships, I thought I was content, but I really, really wasn't. And so it wasn't until I was fully content and I was like, you know what, God, I don't want any girls, I'm done with it, that it was like, okay, cool, we're good now. So it's a little thought for you guys today. Make sure you guys are being content, make sure you guys are delighting in the Lord, and I hope everything goes well for you. So those are just some quick thoughts for you guys. Let me know, follow me on social media, follow me on Instagram at @csals_. Send me a DM and let me know what topics you guys would like to cover. I appreciate y'all for being here. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend. Really, truly think about that verse, especially 1 Timothy 6:6. I think it's a good verse for y'all to be thinking about, talking about there's great gain with godliness and contentment. So try to be content today.